Imagine you're walking through a really dense, unforgiving jungle.
Oh, like the kind where the canopy is so thick it just completely chokes out the sun?
Exactly. And
God.
the air is heavy with that kind of humidity that makes it genuinely hard to just draw a full breath.
Right, where it feels like you're breathing water.
Yeah, and the silence is just oppressive.
Yeah.
So every snapped twig sounds like a gunshot.
Which is terrifying on its own.
Totally. And then suddenly, the ferns part,
Mm-hmm.
and you are face to face with an apex predator. Let's just say it's a tiger.
Okay, my heart rate is already going up just picturing that.
Right, because in that microscopic fraction of a second, your body undergoes this violent biological cascade.
Oh, for sure. The amygdala just starts screaming.
Yes, cortisol and adrenaline just flood your bloodstream. Your pupils dilate to capture more light. Your blood physically shunts away from your digestive organs.
Straight into the major muscle groups.
Exactly, getting ready to run or fight. Your heart rate doubles. The fight or flight response has completely hijacked your nervous system.
It's pure ancient biology taking over.
Right. Now, in that terrible moment, what is your first line of defense? I mean, most of us immediately conceptualize physical tools for physical threats.
We wish we had a weapon, or we look for a tree to climb.
Yeah, or we slowly back away, trying not to, trigger a chase reflex. Or maybe we throw our arms up to make ourselves look as large and intimidating as possible.
Because that is the most deeply ingrained biological imperative we possess. I mean, we are conditioned by literally millions of years of evolution to meet physical mass and physical danger with an equal and opposite physical reaction.
Or by utilizing physical distance, just getting away.
Exactly. You are describing the absolute core mechanism of mammalian survival. The equation is always material, right? It's meat, muscle speed, and kinetic force.
But what if we completely upend that equation?
Okay, I like where this is going.
What if your primary defense mechanism in that jungle wasn't a firearm? It wasn't the speed of your legs. What if your defense was something, well, entirely invisible?
An invisible defense against a tiger. That's a wild premise.
It is. What if your inner state of profound, absolute spiritual peace, your aura, essentially acted as a tangible biological shield?
Wow, okay.
Today, we are exploring the extreme, really razor-thin intersection of highly advanced spiritual practices and raw, lethal danger in the natural world.
It's a fascinating overlap.
It really is. We're taking a deep dive into a question that sounds like it belongs in a mythological text rather than reality, Can achieving the highest, most advanced states of human consciousness actually protect you from the most ferocious animals on Earth?
Introducing the concept of consciousness or, spiritual energy into the brutal mathematics of the food chain, that is stepping into totally uncharted territory.
Oh, absolutely. Highly controversial territory, too.
Definitely. Because we are so accustomed to viewing the natural world as this strictly mechanistic environment, we see it as a place of predators and prey, driven purely by the biological imperatives of hunger, territorial defense, and genetic survival.
Right. It's eat or be eaten.
Exactly. To suggest that a human being could simply stand there, unarmed, and actually alter the behavior of an apex predator purely through the frequency of their internal bioenergy, that requires a massive paradigm shift.
It completely challenges the foundational bedrock of how we understand physics and biology.
It really does. It flips it all on its head.
And we have an incredible, highly specific roadmap for this journey today. We are pulling from a fascinating, deeply cautionary transcript from a YouTube channel called Osman the Blind Yogi.
Such an interesting source to unpack.
Truly. Specifically, we are analyzing a video where he directly addresses this exact question, whether advanced yoga and meditation protect a practitioner from ferocious animals.
And his answer is anything but a simple yes or no.
Oh, not at all. It is this complex exploration of quantum bioenergy, the chaotic realities of the natural world, and a severe warning about the deadly trap of what we call the spiritual ego.
Which is such a crucial concept to grasp.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this delicate, potentially fatal balance. We're going to explore how someone might cultivate profound spiritual energy while simultaneously maintaining a ruthless respect for physical reality.
Setting the stage for this is so crucial because of how, well, domesticated our understanding of these practices has become.
Oh, totally. What do you mean by domesticated, exactly?
Well, when the average person hears words like yoga or meditation, they usually picture a brightly lit studio on a Tuesday evening.
Right, with the expensive leggings and the ambient music.
Exactly. They think of these ancient sciences as gentle lifestyle accessories for, lowering blood pressure or stretching out a tight lower back.
Or just finding 15 minutes of quiet before logging into a really stressful Zoom meeting.
Right. But Osman's framework strips away all of that modern domestication. The source material we are examining today pushes these concepts far beyond the boundaries of an exercise mat.
Way beyond.
We are looking at these practices taken to their absolute life or death limits, returning them to their ancient roots as rigorous, demanding sciences of human optimization.
And to really grasp that, we really need to understand the messenger here. So, okay, let's unpack this incredible list of credentials he provides in the transcript.
Quite a list.
It is. Osman introduces himself with claims that immediately challenge conventional boundaries. He describes himself as a master-level energy healer with telepathic capabilities.
Which right there is a massive statement.
Huge. And he states that he specializes almost exclusively in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses, in addition to being an advanced-level yoga and meditation teacher.
And we really need to look at his specific background to understand the weight of that. Because based on the deeper context of his practice, we're talking about someone who has supposedly maintained a rigorous, often 18-hour-a-day practice regimen for over 50 years.
18 hours a day.
Yeah.
That is almost incomprehensible discipline.
It really is. And he claims to have reached advanced states of Samadhi, which is total meditative absorption, as a teenager, like by the age of 19.
Oh.
And there's another fascinating detail that really frames how he communicates this ancient science. Osman has been permanently blind since May 2023.
Oh, I see. So relatively recently in the grand scheme of his 50-year practice.
Exactly. Because he possessed normal eyesight prior to that date, he retains these incredibly vivid visual memories and sensory frames of reference.
That makes a lot of sense when you listen to him describe things.
Right. In his videos, he describes environments, techniques, and visual realities with the unique precision of someone who has known sight, translating that past visual knowledge into his current teachings.
That adds such a unique layer of depth to his perspective. But I have to say, when you encounter a resume that lists telepathy and terminal illness recovery alongside a half-century of extreme meditative discipline, it fundamentally alters how you have to listen to the person.
It absolutely forces a confrontation with our own skepticism. Because Osman is establishing right out of the gate that he operates in a highly esoteric, highly specialized space.
Yeah, he's not just talking about doing some deep breathing.
No, he is claiming mastery over invisible foundational forces, bioenergy, quantum entanglement for remote healing, and the actual ability to influence the physical healing of the most severe biological breakdowns imaginable.
Like late-stage cancer or acute systemic failure.
Exactly. For many listeners, these claims alone might trigger a really strong defensive reaction. I mean, it requires a significant suspension of disbelief, or at least a very open curiosity, to entertain the idea that the human mind can reach a state where it manipulates the physical reality of failing cells.
I found myself toggling between sheer awe and absolute skepticism while reading that part.
That's a very natural response.
But just as I was wrestling with the magnitude of his claims about reversing severe pathologies through energy manipulation, he takes this sharp, highly unexpected left turn.
Which is the most brilliant part of his approach.
It really is. And this is the pivot that really convinced me we had to do this deep dive today. Right after laying out these massive paradigm-shifting claims about his esoteric abilities, he immediately drops a very grounded, almost aggressively legalistic medical disclaimer.
The juxtaposition there is amazing. It tells you everything you need to know about his underlying philosophy.
He explicitly states, and I'm quoting the transcript here, "Please remember my therapies are all natural-based and not a replacement for medical treatment if you have a medical condition. Be sure to consult with a qualified and licensed medical professional in your locality."
He demands it. He doesn't just suggest it.
Right. He demands that his audience seek out conventional doctors.
I look at that disclaimer and I see a profound boundary being drawn.
Yeah.
I mean, you have an individual who claims the ability to facilitate the healing of terminal illness through remote quantum energy work, yet he vehemently refuses to dismiss modern conventional allopathic medicine.
He doesn't just tolerate it, he actively defers to it.
Exactly. By insisting that his therapies are strict complements to standard medical care, he is anchoring his esoteric practice to the hard bedrock of modern science. He actually emphasizes a scientific paradigm.
Which is fascinating. A scientific approach to mystical healing.
Yes. For him, a 90% success rate in these cases isn't some magical anomaly, it's the natural consequence of optimizing the human biofield. But he still says, go to the doctor.
I was really trying to wrap my head around this apparent contradiction because if you genuinely possess this supreme energetic power that can rewire cellular health from thousands of miles away, why do you insist your client go down the street to see a local doctor with a stethoscope and a prescription pad?
It almost feels like admitting a limitation, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized it's actually incredibly revealing about how he views the architecture of the universe.
You are hitting on the exact paradox that defines genuine mastery versus charlatanism.
Ooh, say more about that.
Well, think about it. A charlatan demands you abandon the physical world and rely solely on their magic. They tell you to throw away your medicine.
Right, the whole only I can save you mentality.
Exactly. But Osman is demonstrating a fundamental, uncompromising respect for the physical laws of the universe. He recognizes that we are, at our core, biological beings living in a dense physical dimension.
And that dimension has non-negotiable rules.
Precisely. You cannot simply bypass the physical reality of a failing kidney, a ruptured appendix, or an acute viral infection just because you understand subtle energy dynamics. The energetic system and the physical system must coexist and co-regulate.
It makes me think of an automotive analogy.
Oh, I love a good analogy. Let's hear it.
Okay, so imagine you own a multi-million-dollar experimental high-performance sports car.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Let's say your advanced yoga practice and this telepathic energy healing represent this massive state-of-the-art V12 twin-turbo engine. It gives you capabilities that a standard sedan simply doesn't possess.
Right, you can accelerate way faster, maneuver with incredible precision.
Exactly, and reach speeds most people can't even fathom. But just because you have that astonishing engine, it doesn't mean you have suddenly opted out of the laws of physics.
You still have momentum and friction to deal with.
Yes. It doesn't mean you can stop wearing your seatbelt. It certainly doesn't mean you get to ignore red lights or, drive off a canyon cliff expecting the sheer power of the engine to make the car fly.
Because gravity doesn't care about your V12 engine.
Exactly. You still have to operate within the physical, unyielding constraints of the asphalt.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. Traditional medicine, in Osman's worldview, is the seatbelt. It is the guardrail on that canyon road.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
He is teaching that spiritual advancement does not grant you a magical exemption from physical vulnerability. It might dramatically enhance your biological resilience, like, optimizing your immune system to an astonishing degree, but it does not render you immortal or immune to the brutal mechanics of biological decay.
And this philosophical grounding, this deep, uncompromising respect for the physical world, is the exact lens through which we have to interpret his answer to the question about wild animals.
Because the logic holds perfectly.
Right. If he demands that you respect the physical, biological danger of a medical condition like a tumor, he is absolutely going to demand that you respect the physical danger of a massive, hungry predator.
It's the exact same principle applied to a different physical threat.
So let's really get into the core of his teaching on the animal question. Can advanced yoga protect you? Osman essentially says, yes, it can, but the but carries lethal weight.
It's a very heavy but.
He introduces this concept of the evolving aura. He claims that as a person truly evolves through thousands of hours of rigorous meditation, something fundamental shifts in how the world perceives them.
He describes what we could really interpret as a literal change in biofrequency.
Okay, unpack that a little. Biofrequency.
Yeah, he states that as you evolve, you will find that toxic people and animals tend to stop focusing their toxicity on you. They begin to communicate with you in a more harmonious manner.
And you effectively become immune to the attacks that they would normally instinctively launch at other people.
Exactly.
And the way he casually links those two things is what I find so compelling. I mean, he lumps toxic people and ferocious animals into the exact same behavioral category.
Analyzing that pairing is so crucial. What's fascinating here is that Osman is suggesting human toxicity, the malicious gossip trying to ruin your reputation at the office, or the aggressively unstable driver tailgating you on the highway.
Or the emotionally manipulative family member.
Right. All of that is operating on the exact same energetic wavelength as the predatory aggression of a wild animal. In his framework, it is all just different manifestations of the same low-frequency, hostile energy.
I love how that strips away all the complex, intellectualized psychological justifications we give to terrible human behavior.
We do like to overanalyze it.
We really do. When a coworker is being utterly toxic, we tend to psychoanalyze them to death.
Yeah.
We say, oh, they're just insecure because they got passed over for a promotion, or they're projecting their unresolved childhood trauma onto me.
Which might be true on a narrative level, but
But Osman is cutting through all of that narrative. He is essentially saying no. Fundamentally, strip away the human ego, and they're just vibrating at the exact same frequency as a snapping crocodile.
it's just raw, unregulated, biological hostility looking for a target.
Yes, and by that same token, his premise is that your internal energetic state can act as a literal repellent to that frequency.
Which brings to mind a lot of modern physiological theories, actually. Like, if you look at the work of someone like Tony Robbins regarding neuroassociative conditioning and profound state changes.
Oh, that's an interesting parallel.
Right. Robbins talks endlessly about how changing your physiological state fundamentally alters how you interact with the world and how the world responds to you. Osman is talking about a deeply sustained, energetic version of that state change.
So when you achieve these highly advanced states of meditation, you regulate your central nervous system to such a profound, permanent degree that you no longer emit the signals of prey.
Exactly. Nor do you emit the signals of a rival predator. You become something else entirely in their sensory landscape.
I want to really dig into the mechanics of that. Because for you, listening to this deep dive, even if you are never going to trek into the Amazon and face down a jaguar, you are absolutely going to face down a toxic boss or a hostile stranger on the subway.
We all do, every day.
So how does this harmony actually function in the real world? Because we can't just be talking about a glowing, magical force field that deflects bad vibes, right? There has to be a mechanism.
We can look at this through the lens of profound biological and energetic communication. I mean, think about how much of human and animal interaction is dictated by nonverbal autonomic signals.
Like body language.
Way deeper than just crossed arms. Our microexpressions, the subtle shifts in our posture, our breathing rate, the dilation of our pupils, the microtension in our jaw. Even the imperceptible pheromones we release when we're stressed. Animals, and to a very large extent humans, are highly subconsciously attuned to these subtle biological cues.
So they smell the fear, literally.
Literally and energetically. If you are harboring internal fear, anxiety, or latent aggression yourself, your nervous system is continuously broadcasting that tension into your environment. A predator senses the fear signals and its biology says prey.
And a toxic person senses the insecurity and their ego says target.
Precisely.
So you're saying the advanced practitioner has essentially silenced that broadcast?
Actually, it's precisely the opposite of silencing it. They have changed the station completely.
Oh, I like that.
Through decades of practice, they have downregulated their autonomic nervous system into a state of permanent, unshakable coherence. When a toxic person or an aggressive animal encounters them, there is no energetic friction.
The yogi isn't giving the predator's biology anything to latch onto.
Exactly. There is no scent of fear to trigger the chase instinct, and there is no counter-aggression to trigger a territorial fight. The hostile energy simply fails to find purchase because the biological lock does not match the energetic key.
I'm trying to visualize this practically. Does the toxicity of the animal or the person actually vanish in that moment? Or does it just slide off the yogi like water off a windshield?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because I noticed the transcript uses very specific, careful wording here. Osman says they tend to not focus their toxicity towards you.
That specific wording is the hinge upon which this entire philosophy rests. He does not claim that your advanced aura magically cures the toxic person's trauma.
Right.
Nor does it domesticate the wild animal into a pet. The negativity, the inherent danger, still absolutely exists in the physical world. The king cobra is still highly venomous.
And the toxic boss is still a deeply miserable, destructive human being.
Exactly. But their hostility loses its gravitational lock on the practitioner. They look at the advanced yogi and, for whatever subconscious or energetic reason, be it a lack of fear signals or a disruption in their usual predatory targeting pattern, they just decide, not this one.
They pass them by.
Yes, it is a state of being rendered energetically invisible to chaos.
It is an incredibly beautiful concept. The idea that if you cultivate enough profound peace within the architecture of your own mind, the world is forced to reflect that peace back to you, even in its most dangerous, untamed forms.
It's very reminiscent of Paramahansa Yogananda's teachings, actually.
Oh, in Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yes. Yogananda talks extensively about advanced masters who could manipulate energy to the point where wild animals simply surrendered to their peaceful vibrations. It paints this deeply romantic, ancient picture of the enlightened master sitting under a banyan tree in the forest, surrounded by docile tigers and sleeping snakes, completely untouched by the violence of the food chain.
Which is such a captivating image. But just as we start to get comfortable with that mythological image,
Osman takes a hammer and shatters it entirely.
he absolutely obliterates it. When you start picturing this invincible monk, here's where it gets really interesting, because Osman introduces a variable that destroys the entire myth of the untouchable guru.
He brings it right back down to earth.
He really does. He acknowledges that, yes, highly elevated people can sometimes confront extremely dangerous creatures, lions, tigers, crocodiles, poisonous snakes, and walk away completely unharmed. But then he delivers a severe, unambiguous warning.
He says, be very careful with this.
Yes, be very careful with this. And he introduces the concept of what he calls the crazy animal.
It is the ultimate injection of brutal realism into a spiritual discussion. Osman states, very plainly, some animals are crazy animals. You can have the best aura and the best advancement in yoga science. They're going to kill you.
It is a stark, almost shocking admission from someone whose entire life is dedicated to teaching the supreme power of energy.
Right. They're going to kill you. There is zero ambiguity in that phrasing.
No, they might accidentally harm you. Just a straight shot of fatal reality.
Yeah.
What I deeply appreciate about this is the psychological realism. He is openly admitting that the natural world is not a perfect, harmonious, Disney-like system that always responds rationally to good vibes and high frequencies.
This is a profound commentary on the presence of chaos theory within biological systems. Human beings have a desperate desire for control.
Oh, I really do.
We like to believe that if we follow all the rules, if we meditate perfectly, if we eat cleanly, if our aura is pristine, the universe will reward us with absolute safety and predictability.
We want a transactional relationship with nature. Like, I emit peace, you are obligated to return peace.
Exactly. But Osman is pointing out that the physical dimension contains wildly unpredictable, chaotic variables that do not care about your spiritual resume. A crazy animal is one whose psychology or biology is fundamentally broken.
Malfunctioning.
Right. It is operating on a level of pure erratic malfunction that bypasses all normal energetic communication protocols.
I am thinking about the terrifying reality of that. It could be a lion suffering from a late-stage brain tumor that is pressing against its amygdala, making it hyper-aggressive to everything it sees.
Or it could be a snake that is half blind from shedding its skin, trapped in a corner, lashing out at every passing shadow out of pure biological terror.
Or a feral dog suffering from the late stages of rabies, where the virus has literally destroyed the brain's ability to process anything other than violence.
Exactly. In those specific instances, your profound spiritual advancement, your 50 years of meditation, means absolutely nothing to them.
Because you are trying to communicate in the subtle, nuanced language of quantum bioenergy, and the animal is operating on a frequency of pure, destructive biological static.
Which highlights the immense, often fatal danger of spiritual hubris. It is incredibly dangerous to assume that metaphysical laws completely and entirely overwrite physical biological laws.
A perfectly calm, highly evolved aura is a beautiful achievement, but it cannot negotiate with unhinged cellular chaos.
No, it cannot act as physical Kevlar against a 600-pound predator that has literally lost its mind.
Let me push back on this, though, just to stress Kess's logic here.
Okay, let's do it.
Because earlier in the transcript, Osman claimed to be a master energy healer actively dealing with terminal illnesses. We brought up Deepak Chopra earlier, who talks a lot about quantum healing and mind-body medicine, essentially consciousness-driven biology.
Right, the idea that the mind can instruct the cells to heal.
Exactly. If Osman's energy manipulation is truly powerful enough to heal something as severe, as deeply systemic, and as physically devastating as a terminal pathology inside the human body, why does it completely fail against a crazy wild dog?
That's a great question.
Right. Isn't a terminal illness, like a spreading cancer, just another form of internal biological chaos? Why does the energy work on the microscopic chaos but fail against the macroscopic chaos?
That is an excellent challenge, and the answer reveals the deep consistency of Osman's framework. Healing, even the most profound quantum-level energy healing, works fundamentally in partnership with the host body's natural
In
systems.
partnership, okay.
It is a process of removing energetic blockages, restoring systemic flow, and optimizing the body's inherent evolutionary intelligence to repair itself. No matter how sick a human body is, on a cellular level, the body actually wants to live.
Oh, that makes sense. The cells possess an original blueprint for health.
Exactly. A blueprint that the energy healer is trying to reactivate and support.
Hmm.
But when you are standing in the jungle facing a crazy animal, there is no shared biological system to optimize.
Ah, I see the distinction. It's internal collaboration versus external collision.
Exactly the right distinction. You are not inside the animal's biology helping it heal.
Boy.
You are two completely separate, distinct physical entities clashing in three-dimensional space.
You can't collaborate with a charging tiger.
No. You cannot telepathically negotiate with a creature whose internal wiring has snapped, because there is no rational receiver on the other end to pick up your calming signal.
Wow, okay.
Healing a terminal illness is a partnership with a biological system that desires survival. Surviving a wild animal attack from a diseased predator is strictly a matter of physics, kinetic speed, and raw brute force. Osman deeply understands the absolute difference between the two arenas.
Which is exactly why he warns so strongly against confusing them. That clears it up perfectly. It is the difference between meticulously tuning a complex radio to find the right frequency and trying to tune a radio that has just been smashed into 100 pieces with a sledgehammer.
What a great way to put it.
You can send the strongest, clearest broadcast signal in the world, but the smash radio is never going to play music.
And to really drive this point home, to illustrate the potentially deadly consequences of ignoring this reality, Osman tells a very specific modern story.
He introduces what functions as a modern parable about the limits of natural gifts.
He points to an example that I think most people listening will immediately recognize, even though he chooses not to use the specific name.
Right. He talks about an Australian character from a television show who had an incredible, seemingly supernatural ability to handle highly dangerous creatures.
But he notes that this person tragically died after being killed by a crocodile. Osman says this person died specifically because they were playing with something very dangerous.
Now, obviously, if we look at historical facts, the world-famous Australian wildlife expert Steve Irwin was tragically killed by a stingray, not a crocodile.
Right. But for the purpose of dissecting Osman's specific teachings today, we need to focus strictly on Osman's exact wording and the philosophical lesson he is extracting from his interpretation of the event.
Exactly. Osman deliberately uses the crocodile as his symbol of ultimate, unyielding chaos.
And the specific biological details of the animal aren't really the point of his lesson anyway. The mechanism of the tragedy and the behavioral choices leading up to it are the actual point.
Let's look really closely at how Osman describes this individual's capabilities. He points out that this Australian character never practiced yoga or meditation that I know of, but he seemed to have a natural ability to handle very dangerous creatures.
That distinction between a natural ability and practiced conscious discipline is paramount to his philosophy.
Why is that so important?
Because Osman is freely acknowledging that some people are simply born with an innate energetic harmony. They possess a natural, overwhelming charisma, a total lack of standard biological fear, or just a baseline nervous system frequency that wild animals naturally respond to with curiosity rather than aggression.
They are the rare anomalies who can walk into a highly volatile, dangerous situation and naturally diffuse the tension without ever having spent a single day studying ancient texts or sitting on a meditation cushion.
I think we all know people like that in everyday life, too.
Oh, definitely. Like the person who can walk into a screaming argument and just naturally calm everyone down just by being in the room. They don't even have to say anything profound.
Exactly. But Osman's point is that having a natural gift is not the same as having a bulletproof permanent shield.
It is a critical vulnerability. And that is the crux of the parable. Because relying on that natural ability, or frankly, even relying on an earned ability through decades of yoga, to continually actively test fate is a losing game over a long enough timeline.
It ceases to be about spirituality and becomes a matter of cold, hard statistics.
The mathematics of danger. I'm fascinated by this concept. Let's think about this logically, applying basic probability to mysticism.
Let's do it.
If you have this incredible, refined aura, let's say it works perfectly 99.9% of the time, you can walk into the jungle and hold 100 deadly poisonous snakes, you can walk through the city and effortlessly bypass 1,000 deeply toxic, aggressive people.
And every single time you do it successfully, you receive massive positive reinforcement. Your brain chemically rewards you.
Right. You start to think, wow, I really am untouchable. My energy is so perfect that the physical world bends to me.
But Osman warns, you can do this till one day they're going to meet the wrong one. That is crazy. It's going to bite them and attack them.
It is the ultimate devastating commentary on spiritual hubris versus the law of large numbers.
If you flip a coin 1,000,000 times, you are mathematically guaranteed to eventually get an anomalous sequence of outcomes you didn't expect.
If you continuously, voluntarily interact with apex predators, highly venomous reptiles, or even just highly volatile, violent human beings, you are drastically increasing the sample size of your interactions.
You are actively, continuously searching the environment for that 0.1% anomaly.
By refusing to respect the baseline danger, you are mathematically guaranteeing that you will eventually encounter the biological static of the crazy animal.
It reminds me instantly of the psychology behind extreme free solo rock climbing.
Oh, that's a perfect comparison.
You have these athletes who might be the most talented, physically gifted climbers in the history of the world. They are in perfect physical, mental, and spiritual sync with the mountain. Their focus is absolute. They do not make technical mistakes.
But they cannot control the chaotic variables of the environment.
Exactly. They cannot control if a random gust of wind suddenly hits the cliff face at 60 miles an hour, or if a perfectly solid-looking hold simply crumbles under their fingertips due to unseen, microscopic internal fissures in the rock.
The environment inherently harbors invisible chaos. When you play a game with lethal stakes, personal perfection isn't enough to save you, because the arena itself is imperfect.
Looking at the modern landscape, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Osman's critique goes even deeper than just the statistical probability of getting physically maimed.
Where does he take it?
He turns his analytical focus onto the psychological motivation behind putting yourself in those situations in the first place. This brings us to perhaps the most potent, culturally relevant part of the entire transcript.
Osman expresses total, unequivocal opposition to advanced yogis showing off their abilities to the public.
He absolutely does not hold back on this point. He labels the behavior as pure foolishness.
He specifically calls out the modern trend of showing off on YouTube channels, handling dangerous or poisonous creatures in front of cameras, just to prove to an audience that nothing happens to them.
He views it not as a demonstration of skill, but as abusing your advancement.
He is delivering a scathing, highly necessary critique of the modern era of performative spirituality.
We live in an attention economy where absolutely every aspect of the human experience is commodified into content. And unfortunately, that now includes enlightenment and spiritual progression.
There is a massive seductive temptation to monetize, broadcast, or subtly flaunt one's spiritual growth to gain status in the digital hierarchy.
So what does this all mean for the actual practice of yoga or meditation?
It means that true advancement, true profound inner peace should never be reduced to a cheap parlor trick. It is not a tool you use to hack the algorithm, get clicks, farm likes, or elicit gasps of admiration from an audience.
It forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question about human psychology. Why do spiritually advanced people who have presumably done the grueling work, fall into this trap?
You have individuals who have supposedly conquered their base mammalian desires, achieved profound internal peace, and successfully regulated the relentless demands of their own egos.
Why do they suddenly feel the burning compulsion to pick up a venomous king cobra while a camera is rolling?
Because it proves how incredibly, dangerously sneaky the human ego really is.
Oh, it's the ultimate trickster.
You think you've finally defeated it. You've sat in silence for thousands of hours. You've faced your darkest traumas. You've transcended baseline fear. You feel this profound, oceanic connection to the universe.
And then, right when you think you are totally free, the ego quietly slips in through the back door wearing spiritual clothing.
It whispers to you, you are so advanced now. You are practically untouchable. You really should show people what is possible. You should prove it to them to inspire them so they can see how truly enlightened you are.
The ego tricks the practitioner into needing to prove the invisible, subjective reality of their peaceful aura with the highly visible, incredibly dangerous, tangible reality of a deadly snake.
It represents a profound, tragic paradox. The very act of feeling the need to prove your enlightenment to an audience unequivocally demonstrates that your ego is still very much in the driver's seat.
A truly enlightened, integrated being has absolutely nothing to prove to anyone. They do not require the external, fleeting validation of a YouTube comment section to confirm the reality of their internal state.
By actively turning their hard-won spiritual advancement into a public performance, they are fundamentally cheapening the practice, reverting to ego-driven behavior, and as Osman so pointedly says, abusing the sacred gift they cultivated.
It is so similar to the philosophy of elite martial arts. Think about a true, revered grandmaster in a highly lethal martial arts system.
Right. They spend decades of their life learning exactly how to break joints, how to effortlessly disarm opponents, how to inflict maximum, devastating kinetic damage with minimal effort.
Why do they dedicate their lives to violence?
Right.
Because the philosophy is that they learn these lethal skills specifically so they never ever have to actually use them.
The grueling physical training gives them the supreme internal confidence and the situational awareness to de-escalate aggressive situations, to walk away from insults, and to avoid dangerous environments entirely.
You never see a true, respected master walking into a crowded, rowdy bar, intentionally bumping into aggressive people, desperately trying to provoke a fight just so they can show off how quickly they can dodge a punch.
Only an insecure, reckless amateur behaves that way.
That martial arts framework maps perfectly onto Osman's teachings. The amateur constantly wants to test their nascent skills against the external world to soothe and validate their own insecure ego.
The master, however, deeply understands the lethal, chaotic potential of the physical world and consciously chooses not to engage with it unless absolutely forced to.
Osman is demanding that spiritual practitioners act with the maturity of masters. If your dedicated yoga practice successfully regulates your nervous system to the point where you are immune to the aggression of wild dogs, that is excellent. Be quietly grateful for the blessing.
But under no circumstances should you start actively seeking out packs of feral dogs to play with, just to test your invincibility.
Which brings us to the ultimate, highly practical takeaway from this entire text. Because Osman doesn't just leave his audience with terrifying warnings about crazy animals and parables about crocodiles.
No, he gives us a final, very grounded directive on how to actually live daily life with this esoteric knowledge.
He synthesizes everything by emphasizing the critical difference between maintaining situational awareness versus relying on a delusion of blanket immunity.
He instructs the practitioner to actively notice the positive changes. He says, as you practice your yoga and meditation, genuinely notice that you're becoming more and more immune to the danger of negativity and toxicity from both the animals and the humans around you.
He wants you to acknowledge and validate the progress. It is a real, measurable phenomenon. Your energy is shifting, you are successfully repelling bad frequencies.
But right after validating that progress comes the final grounding hammer drop. He says, don't assume that you have a blanket immunity. You can be in danger, be cautious every time, be warned.
Applying this to daily life, this raises an important question about how we manage our own vigilance. This final instruction defines the delicate, necessary balance of the advanced practitioner.
It is about living perpetually in a state of dual awareness.
On one hand, you actively cultivate, celebrate, and deeply appreciate the profound emotional and biological peace that your practice brings. You recognize your growing resilience to stress.
But simultaneously, on the other hand, you maintain total, grounded, unflinching vigilance in the physical world. You never, for 1 second, surrender your basic common sense to a spiritual fantasy.
I think this is where we really need to pull this out of the jungle and connect this back to you, the listener, navigating your own life.
Because, let's be honest, the vast majority of us listening to this deep dive are not advanced yogis living in the wilderness debating whether or not to hold a venomous snake.
We are dealing with modern, mundane reality.
But how often do we get a little too comfortable, a little too arrogant in our own lives when things are just going remarkably well?
It is a universal human trap. We extrapolate temporary peace into permanent invincibility.
Exactly that. You string together a few really good weeks, you've been consistent with your meditation app, you've been eating cleanly, your stress at the office is surprisingly manageable, you haven't had a single argument with your partner in over a month.
And you start feeling completely untouchable.
You begin to assume that this current streak of good vibes is a permanent, impenetrable shield you finally earned. You think to yourself, I've finally figured life out. I am totally immune to drama now.
And that specific moment of arrogance is exactly the moment you drop your guard.
That is the moment you say something careless in a meeting, or you casually ignore a glaring red flag in a new relationship.
Or you put yourself in a highly toxic situation just because you arrogantly think you can handle it now.
And that is exactly the moment when the environment reminds you of its teeth. That is when you get bitten.
Yes. You get bitten by the vicious office politics you smugly thought you were above.
You get bitten by the sophisticated financial scam you thought you were way too smart and centered to ever fall for.
You get bitten by the reckless driver on the highway because you were too zoned out on your own feelings of inner peace to actively watch the chaotic road in front of you.
Osman's stern advice to be cautious every time is a timeless reminder that the world is a highly dynamic, ever-changing environment. Your past spiritual success or your current state of calm does not guarantee your future physical or emotional safety.
It serves as a masterclass in radical humility. It teaches us that true, authentic spiritual advancement does not breed a reckless, performative arrogance.
Rather, it breeds a profound, deeply respectful awareness of the massive, chaotic forces constantly at play around you.
It teaches you to walk softly through the world, not to stomp around blindly demanding that the physical mechanics of nature bow to the majesty of your aura.
This entire deep dive has been such an incredible, unexpected journey. We started by examining claims of telepathic healing and the reversal of terminal illnesses. Claims that immediately forced us to confront our own biases and the strict boundaries between the metaphysical and the biological.
We saw how a self-described master healer insists on utilizing the physical guardrails of traditional local medicine.
We then explored the truly fascinating paradigm-shifting idea that human toxicity and animal aggression might actually vibrate on the exact same low-frequency wavelength.
And we discussed the biological mechanics of how a highly regulated, deeply calm nervous system can act as a natural, almost invisible repellent to both of those threats.
But then we slammed headfirst into the brutal reality of the crazy animal. We confronted the chaotic, unpredictable, biologically broken variables of the natural world that, frankly, do not care how many thousands of hours you've spent meditating.
We unpacked the tragic modern parable of the Australian TV character who relied on a profound natural ability, but ultimately fell victim to the cold mathematics of danger by playing a statistical game with a crocodile.
And finally, we exposed the incredibly subtle, highly dangerous traps of the spiritual ego, the absolute foolishness of turning profound, hard-won inner peace into a cheap, monetized YouTube stunt just to prove a point to strangers.
Ultimately, I believe Osman has provided us with a truly brilliant blueprint for how to live. It is a guide for staying deeply, pragmatically grounded in the dirt of the physical world while simultaneously reaching for the absolute highest spiritual heights of human potential.
The lesson is crystal clear. Actively cultivate your inner peace to deflect the toxic people in your life. Acknowledge and celebrate your growing emotional resilience, but never ever assume you are invincible to the chaos of the world.
The physical world will always demand your respect, and chaos is, and always will be, an active, roaming variable in the equation of life.
Which brings us to a final thought I want to offer.
Okay, let's hear it.
We spent this entire hour talking about how our internal energy dictates whether the external world reacts to us as a physical threat or a peaceful friend. We've talked extensively about deflecting the toxicity that comes at us from the outside.
Right.
But I encourage you to think about the inverse of that equation. If our aura, our baseline energetic frequency, is constantly broadcasting our internal state to the world, and the biological world is constantly subconsciously responding to that exact frequency,
I see where you're going with this.
how much of the recurring bad luck, the constant interpersonal drama, or the toxic interactions we swear we are victims of in our daily lives are not actually random, unprovoked attacks from a hostile universe?
What if the world is simply acting as a perfect, uncompromising mirror, holding up a reflection of our own unacknowledged, unresolved internal turbulence?
What if the crazy animals and toxic people we continually inexplicably keep encountering are just external manifestations of the hidden chaos we are quietly harboring inside ourselves?
That is a staggering perspective shift. It is definitely something to sit with and think about the next time you feel like the entire world is unfairly out to get you.
Thank you so much for dedicating your time to join us on this deep dive. Until next time, take care of yourself. Stay vigilantly aware of your surroundings and always watch where you step when you are walking through the jungle.